Uh, can I use this opportunity to cue panel 2, so TC Travel Services on stage, please. I'm also going to invite the panelists, Mr. Chi Pei Chang, Assistant Chief Executive, International Group, Singapore Tourism Board, who is joining us from Singapore. Ms. Shima Vora, Managing Director, Brand USA, India. Mr. Claudio Zemp, Director, India, Switzerland Tourism. And Ms. Christine Mukherjee, Market Manager, India, Austrian National Tourism Office. Vishal, over to you.
Thank you, Abe. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here today. This is the second edition of India Travel Summit. The last one was in Mumbai. So I'm absolutely delighted to actually welcome all my panelists. We are going to talk today about the new age Indian traveler, the trends and the initiatives to deliver value to a growing tribe of evolved travelers. I will introduce and give a little bit of background of all my panelists, and for the audience, please pardon my voice. My throat actually deserted me last evening, so I will have some interruptions in between, but we will manage to complete and make it as interesting as possible. In no order of preference, I will start with my friend, Mr. Chi Pei Chang, Assistant Chief Executive, International Group, Singapore Tourism Board. He's based out of Singapore now and is responsible for international groups that include Europe, India, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa. That's a very, very big job, Chipe, that you do. He's held various critical functions. He's been based in India also earlier, so he understands India quite well. And has been responsible for many successful campaigns for Singapore Tourism Board. So welcome, Chipe. And Chipe has flown in last night from Singapore directly for this discussion. My next panelist is Shima Vora, President and Managing Director, sarthak Global Marketing. This group was founded by Shima, and it represents many tourism boards in India, leveraging her deep experience in the travel sector. Few of her prestigious clients include the Brand USA, which is what she's representing today, Visit California, Las Vegas Conventions and Visitors Association, among many others. So thanks, Shima, for being here. And you pretty much own the whole of United States of America. The next panelist that we have is a Swiss gentleman, Claudio Zemp. He's the India Director of Switzerland Tourism. Claudio is responsible for the India market for Switzerland since 2015. Claudio has been with Switzerland Tourism for close to about 18 odd years and has held various critical portfolios for the Switzerland Tourism Board in UK. And the last panelist that I have is the lady sitting right next to me, is Christine Mukherjee, India Director of Austrian National Tourist Office, ANTO. Christine has been with ANTO for almost 20 years. She doesn't look that old. She has been responsible for setting up the Austrian Tourism Office in India and is instrumental in building it to the current volumes of over 150,000 passengers from India to Austria. Is that the right number, Christine? Almost there. It's more than that. So, getting back to the business side of this discussion, Indian travelers are getting more adventurous and their aspirations are now translating into desire. They're pushing the envelope with their travel aspirations. No destination is too far. No experience is too bold. Budget and time are not the primary constraints anymore. New age travelers with higher purchasing power are changing the way travel is purchased in the marketplace. Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets are at the helm of this growth story out of India. And we heard in the earlier panel also that India is one of the largest source markets. So what exactly is the new age Indian traveler? I thought I will set the context before we move on to the discussion. There is a Goldman Sachs report on India consumption story. And that essentially talks about two primary levers that are driving the consumption in the Indian market. And that's talking about, those levers are the younger India and the more connected India. Technology in the hands of young, adaptable generation is responsible for a revolution in travel in India, and travel has changed significantly. We will try and hopefully decode by the end of this discussion the New Age traveler. The New Age traveler does not want to see the world in a conventional way. They are always on the lookout for something new. As tour operators, 10 years back we would say, higher the complexity, better it is for us because we are in business. Today, a lot of it is being simplified, and the New Age traveler doesn't worry about the complexities anymore. They need facilities and services which suit their budget. They do not wait for their family to take them on a vacation, but they take solo trips, trips with families and friends, and sometimes even with strangers. They want to experience the fabric of the destination. They almost want to travel like a local. And I think that's a big theme that is driving the New Age traveler. In this age of internet, traveling is not about the arrangements of the spectacle. Thank you. It is about discovery. There's another report that I thought I will refer to in this discussion, and it will beautifully set up the context for our discussion. Mementos undertook another research which was titled Trending with Next Gen Travelers. Mementos' research on the millennials. And what it essentially says is that as per their research, there are three themes that identify the millennial traveler. And those three themes are, they're smart consumers, which means they are essentially digital natives, internet experts, they don't need help, they want empowerment, they are completely channel agnostics. So physical or digital doesn't really make a difference to them, as long as it's a seamless experience. They expect the information on the go, and they want only the start and the end points, and chart the journey in between. So talk about empowerment. The second theme that drives, as per this Mementos report, is the uniqueness search. These people don't consider themselves tourists. They consider themselves as explorers. And that's a possibility for co-creation, hopefully. They crave for differentiation and uniqueness. And they want customized travel plans. They don't want fabricated experiences, but expect authentic experiences that will drive their journey. And the last theme, as per this Mementos report, is the social interaction. These guys want to be on 24/7 interacting. They want family and friends interaction is absolutely essential even when they're holidaying. They expect interactive conversations versus one-way communication, and they're very, very confident in engaging with the brands. So with that as a backdrop, I will now open up the floor, and we'll go straight to Chipe. My question to you, Chipe, is, are you witnessing a perceptible shift in the travel behavior of Indian travelers? Singapore Tourism Board has been in India, and you personally have been a part of this market, driving and developing this market. So is there a perceptible shift in the travel behavior of Indian travelers? And if yes, what are these shifts that you are seeing, especially for the destination Singapore, and how have you addressed those shifts? Over to you.
Thank you, Vishal. I always like to tell my Indian friends that coming to India is almost like coming back home. I spent a total of 5 years here in Mumbai, working in the Indian market, over 2 stints, and so it was more time I spent in the army, serving my national service, or in the university. So it's good to be back. I think the shift that we have seen from the Indian market is that, firstly, I think they are starting to go beyond the typical checklist holidays, right? I think in the past, there are, when Indians like to travel, there's a checklist of iconic attractions and places that they like to see, and they'll try and cram in as much time as they can, and check where they have been to. But I think that we're starting to see that they want more deeper, more immersive, more authentic, and more local experiences, right? So let me just cite 2 examples of some experiences in Singapore that have proven to be quite popular with the Indian travelers. One is more of a really premium experiences. I think for those of you who know that we have just signed on to extend the Formula One race in Singapore for 4 more years, right? So we just finished our 10th edition. It's very successful, and we feel that the economics of running the race itself is still very attractive for Singapore. So we signed on for 4 more years. And one of the experience right now that's been offered in Singapore is that you can actually rent a Ferrari or a Lamborghini car and drive pretty much around the same circuit that the F1 cars goes to, just in the right direction, right? So, and you know, there's something to be said in sitting in a Ferrari car, feeling the wind in your hair, driving down the roads of Singapore. And that's an experience that, well, almost money can't buy, you know, but it's a good experience, and I think a lot of people who are motorheads who enjoyed the experience, really like this Formula One experience. So I think that's one. I think the second one that has also been very popular, especially among the young students, is actually a visit to the Kranji War Memorial, right? Actually, a lot of people might not realize that during World War II, during the Battle of Singapore, there were a large number of Indian soldiers fighting for the British Army defending Singapore, right? And many of those who died defending Singapore is now enshrined with their names at the Kranji War Memorial. And when we bring groups of students to the Kranji War Memorial and tell them the stories of the sacrifices that were made by the Indian soldiers, it was a very, very moving experience, right? So again, these two are not your typical sort of a checklist type of experiences that many tour groups go for, but it's something that many of the people we brought through are really deeply moved by those experiences.
Thanks, Chipe. And I think you brought in a very interesting point, and the F1 race, which is a street circuit, very unique in any case, using some of these as hooks to actually leverage and grow tourism into a destination. And I think that's been beautifully done. And I personally witnessed the F1 race, and it's a great experience. I will now move to Claudio. And like Singapore, Switzerland has been working and developing the Indian market for an extremely long time. So, Claudio, from your perspective, what are the perceptible shifts that you are witnessing in the travel behavior as far as Indian consumer is concerned? And then how are you addressing those?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about this for a few years now. The new traveler, the younger traveler from India, the more advanced traveler. I mean, we're looking at a generation now who grew up traveling. They traveled with their parents first to Switzerland. When they are an adult, they're not coming to Europe for the first time. And Switzerland has been extremely lucky in India, of course, that we have been an extremely popular destination. We have an amazing image here. People want to come to India. But what we felt a little bit was that with this new generation of traveler, the image which Switzerland has does not necessarily, in India has, does not necessarily reflect the products which we offer in Switzerland. When I was a young Swiss person, a look at Switzerland is we are a very experimental travel destination. We would go out at lunchtime, go swimming in the lake. We would go out hiking on the weekends. We would go biking in the evenings along a river. We, of course, would do winter sports. We would go skydiving. But all these activities, all these opportunities in Switzerland were not really that well known in India. It was very much what our dear friend Yash Chopra showed us, looking lovingly in each other's eyes in a chiffon sari on top of a mountain. So, and that necessarily is not necessarily what the next generation wants. And my job when I came here, I felt was that really whatever people in India know about Switzerland is correct. You can find all these traditional experiences in Switzerland, but we need to now highlight that we have all these other experiences as well, what the younger traveler will want. And this is what we've been working on for the last 2 years now. We have been working with influencers on television. We have been working with Ranveer Singh as a brand ambassador, really driving this message that Switzerland is a fun destination for people if you travel by yourself, with your friends, with your partners, and you have a lot of different activities to do.
And that's an interesting point, Claudio, that you bring about the brand ambassador Ranveer Singh. And is it to do with his appeal with the youth of India? Is that the reason that Switzerland Tourism Board is looking at somebody like Ranveer Singh? Is that the connection that you are looking at, seeking at? Because Switzerland has been very popular, and like Mahesh said earlier, that it has always been popular and top of the list from an aspiration perspective. So what's been your experience with having Ranveer Singh on that? And is it making a difference to the youth, and you're seeing more younger people traveling?
I think if I think of Switzerland up till now, the image of Switzerland, we were maybe a little bit more Priyanka Chopra than Ranveer Singh. And we wanted to really, Ranveer's personality, his larger-than-life personality, he's going for it, really wanting to explore life. And this is something what Swiss people do on a different level, but this is really what we do as well. And this is why we've chosen Ranveer for this campaign. It was really a very good vehicle also to drive the message through to the media. I mean, we've been extremely successful with media picking up organically whatever he's done in Switzerland. We would have never been able to do such a big PR campaign like we had, the PR results like we had just by Ranveer posting things on social media.
Thanks, Claudio. I'll flip this question to Christine now. And 20 years is a long time to actually know how much it has shifted. So, Christine, I wanted your perspective. And Austria is emerging. It's growing very, very rapidly. And you corrected me on the numbers of Indian travelers that are going. So, what are the shifts that you are seeing in terms of the new age travelers to Austria?
First, I have to say I'm very jealous, of course, of the status of Switzerland being Bollywood destination #1. I had it much harder when I started because when I said Austria, people said, oh, you're from Sydney or Melbourne. So, but that were the good old times. I corrected them. I said, no, I am from the city of Salzburg and we can offer at least a movie Sound of Music. But you all know that this movie now is catering to a different generation, and we also have to gear up and look at the new needs and desires. And yes, the biggest challenge for us is the in-depth knowledge of the Indian traveler. And the other big challenge is, which is of course good for India, unlike many other countries, the economy is booming. Every day new travel agents are coming up. So this is a huge challenge for us to keep them up to date with knowledge on our destination, and also to tell the agents about the needs of the Indian travelers. We have a super department nowadays in Vienna who does nothing else, morning to evening. They analyze the behavior of the different traveler. And I think this is the biggest challenge, that we have to make a bridge between the desire, the psychology of the Indian traveler and what actually the Indian agent has to offer, because as per my experience of what I face today, it's not 100% matching. So this is the challenge for us, which being such a tiny organization in India, but this is my #1 target.
Thanks, Christine. And I think obviously we are all challenged in the travel industry because the customer is changing faster than all of us. And that's is our biggest challenge. And sometimes we wonder, how do we cater to this growing demand, and how do we cater to a growing set of customers who are actually becoming far more knowledgeable than some of us. So, and I want to come and ask Shima. And Shima, the question is the same. US has been on top in terms of aspiration. Till very recently, maybe about 7-8 years back, it was difficult to get a US visa. And it was high on the aspiration list for an Indian traveler. A lot of that has changed, and we heard in the earlier panel with so many people with 10-year multiple entry visas. So what are the shifts that you are seeing, and specifically for somebody who goes to the US the first time, and then he already has a 10-year multiple entry, and then he's planning another trip. So what are the shifts that you're seeing, and how is he actually changing his experiences when he's traveling to destination USA?
So thank you very much, Vishal, and thank you, Thomas Cook, for this opportunity. But yeah, and you, me, discussed this several times, and I go back to the research that you just spoke about. Now, when you talk about empowerment, you talk about freedom. There is no other country on earth that does it like the United States. And I think one of our major objectives is that we bring out in everything they've done, and what our main focus is, how do we educate our partners, like our travel agents and tour operators, on the authentic experiences the United States can offer? And we do that through several programs that we initiate. On our consumer side, we are working on a very exciting social first strategy. If you look at our Facebook today, it's counted as one of the best in the top 2, if I'm not mistaken. And we kind of even sit and monitor when we see peaks. And we've kind of monitored to see that obviously all our videoing gets a lot more engagement. So we work a lot more on that. We do regular customer research. Our customer research brought out some very interesting facts. What are the customers telling us about the United States? Most of them are very positive. They would like to come to the US. It's still very aspirational. What are the major motivators? So I was very interested. They talked about activities, and when we broke that down even further, they talked about beach activities, seaside activities. For a long time, I wouldn't have never imagined that, you know. Then they talked about the outdoors. And shopping, not in terms of just shopping, but the experiences that shopping really offers in the United States. And of course, family activities. And I think what we've done with that is try to make sure that we work with our tour operator partners to make sure that they have information. Our gateways are fantastic. How do we take them beyond? So all our educational programs are on that. We've initiated some really new, interesting fam trips that we pretty much do, which are really exposing our partners to going beyond the gateways. We just completed our our sales mission. This is our 6th year. We had 37 companies and 51 delegates. Every year we add about 2 or 3 new destinations. And these are not destinations that are gateways. These are destinations like Oregon, not Boston, but Massachusetts. So I think one of the shifts that we've seen is the Indian traveler is very interested to go and explore beyond. He just wants that information, wants it on the go, and the US being one of the most convenient countries to do that. So, hey, I'm getting into this point A, getting out from point B, and in between there's so much that I can do. So making sure that he always has that information so that they're able to kind of go and pretty much explore the country the way they want to.
Thanks, and I think the point that you make, Shima, is all about the destination empowering a traveler, and then traveler is essentially exploring more in that destination. And I think that's a very good point that you made. I'll move to the next question, and I will start with Claudio this time. And the reason why I start with you, Claudio, is because the destination, and we believe the tourism industry, the future is going to be experiential, sensory. It's all about touch and feel, and that's where the new age customer is headed. We don't want to see it, we want to live it. I want to do it like the locals would do. So how is it that as a tourist office in India, you are preparing the travel trade as well as communicating with the Indian consumer, saying that this is what Switzerland has to offer, which is all about experiential stuff, the sensory stuff, and all of that?
As I said before, there are so many different activities and options to be done in Switzerland, which for Swiss seem to be quite easy and accessible. But we have realized that, of course, for travelers from India, for example, but also from other Asian countries, everything seems to be a little bit more daunting, a little bit more complicated. For example, when we're looking at skiing, so nobody really has seen skiing as an activity for Indians to do. But we are now feeling that people who want to explore these activities, who want to be able to show off that we've been on the skis once, we should be able, as a tourist board, to offer these products as well. Now, skiing, it is a bit complicated. You have to get a ski pass, you have to get your skis, you have to get a ski instructor if you've never been there. and really mittens you don't have either if you come from India. So as a tourist board, we have now put together 20 destinations in Switzerland which offer the first ski experience, which is a half-day program where everything of that is included. Basically, you book the whole package, including your jackets, your mittens, your skis, your boots, the ski instructor. You go to one shop and get everything rather than going to 3 different places to get this. And these are the products which we've put on to the market now, that every travel agent, every tour operator here in India can book that. This is all commissionable, and you can purchase this in 20 different destinations in Switzerland. And this is one of the initiatives which we're taking, where we're feeling like the individual suppliers in Switzerland, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't think about this. This is a job of a tourist board, and more, where in the past we would promote the beauty of Switzerland and come to Switzerland, do that. We also feel like we have to look into the product side of things. A couple of years ago, we came up with a self-drive in Switzerland. We promoted the Grand Tour of Switzerland. Again, the tourist board has taken the initiative to actually signpost the whole of Switzerland around this grand tour, make sure that the sites which can be seen are highlighted on there. The publications have been made in order for tourists to easily do that.
Thanks, Claudio. And I will move that question to Christine. And Austria, in terms of the experiences, is quite close to Switzerland, and it's also a neighbor. So how is it that at ANTO you are taking initiatives? I know you spoke about the challenges earlier, to actually communicate to the new age traveler that there is this whole experiential and the sensory stuff that is there. And I'll agree with Claudio when he says skiing is like safaris. So if you get hooked onto it, you keep going back to it again and again. There are people who've done 30, 40 safaris in India, and there are people who do some in their lifetime, do about 15, 20 ski trips with their family. So Christine, if you can, and skiing is not the example, you can talk about the other experiences that Austria can offer in terms of actually communicating whole thing about being experiential destination.
No, I would love to talk about skiing. I was a nearly professional skier myself, but we have identified 3 regions in Austria which cater to the Indian tourists throughout the year. This is very important. Winter, of course, we have hundreds of them, but the main, don't have to tell you, it's April, May, June. But we have a little bit of a different approach. I look more for Indian partners, like tourists, like travel agents, who themselves have the initiative to look after the new niche topics. And this is, of course, skiing. Now, skiing is not such a new topic in the Indian market. But for example, we had this year the first cycle groups. The people are cycling along the Danube, and they're all vegetarians. So these are the big challenges, because if you have been to Austria, it's not so easy to get pure vegetarian restaurants, unlike you are cycling in the city. So I'm highly interested in those travel agents who can handle these new experiences, because this is definitely a new experience, and who do nothing else. Like there are now, especially in Mumbai, I must say in Mumbai, there are lots of agents who have identified the new needs and what the Indians want. This is one thing on the B2B side, and on the B2B side, B2C side, we have developed our own app, which is called Austria Unique You, and this has all the experiences for the Indian traveler, all new ideas. They are being developed nearly every month. And and on top of it, when coming back to B2B, we are having every second year own FAM trip, which caters only to the topic experiences. So we'll pick up new destinations where no one would go normally. It can be high up in the mountains, it's freezing cold, you have to get up at 5 in the morning. And so we'll make the Indian agents experience that. That is our approach.
Thanks, Christine. And I think I'll have the same question for Chipe. And Singapore as a destination reinvents itself every few years. I don't know if it's 3 years or 5 years or 7 years. But Chipe, how is it? It is a top destination from a intention to purchase from an Indian consumer standpoint. But how is it that you are adding that whole in terms of your communication, and you have a new campaign now which has come out, and congratulations, very, very successful is what I believe. How do you actually communicate this thing about the experiences in Singapore to the new age traveler?
Thank you, Vishal. We just launched our new destination brand, Passion Made Possible, 25th of August this year. I've received many questions, right, about why do we want to change to a new destination brand, having just used Your Singapore for 7 years. I think my answer to that is that one of the DNA of Singapore is that we have a spirit that never settles. We are always looking to improve on what we have done before. And if you look at last year, our tourism performance results was a record year for Singapore. We received 16.4 million visitors, spending 26.4 billion Singapore dollars in Singapore itself. So, so I think when we evolve into a new brand, it is coming from a position of strength rather than trying to address a decline in tourism performance. So why do we want to change? I think when you travel with Qantas, when you look at the airline, one of the things that will strike you is that besides the kangaroo livery, it is on the plane itself, they say the spirit of Australia, right? I think that's what, in a way, we are trying to do, that it's not just selling about the places to visit in Singapore. We want to bring out the spirit of Singapore itself through our destination marketing, and to tell really very local stories about what Singapore is to the Singaporeans, and through the passions of the Singaporeans, connect this to the visitors around the world. So I think that is the underlying reason why we wanted to make Passion Made Possible our new destination branding.
Passion Made Possible. Brilliant. and Shima, the same question to you. From a brand USA perspective, how are you making the destination more experiential? It was earlier about the Statue of Liberty and all those iconic buildings in New York. But how is it that you're making the destination more experiential in terms of your communication? And you did touch upon the social platform that you have.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest advantages we've had, I think we as a destination became experiential much before a lot of others did, because just of the variety of experiences. So we've seen a few things, whether it's an experience of a self-drive, which is now becoming so popular. And actually consumers came out and said, we're happy to do it, because today you can take an Indian driver's license and be driving all over the United States for a whole year, and that's one of the most brilliant experiences. So whether you like, the loneliest road in the world drive, whether you like to go on the Pacific Highway, you want to just drive through New England, you have all those experiences. The other thing that we've started to see is that living like a local, I mean, that's really what today's travelers want to do. So this whole intermingling with society and experiencing the culture, experiencing what it is in terms of the lifestyle. So whether it's the West Coast, which might offer a totally different lifestyle to what, say, a New York, Philadelphia, Boston would offer. So I think we're beginning to see that, and we use a lot of our missions and a lot of our communication that goes out. Currently, a lot of our communication is to the trade. We are a fairly new entrant, but you will begin to see, and at our mission, we unveiled a video that we used called the Welcome Video, which really talked about a lot of different destinations from Arkansas to Hawaii, and what was so, different in terms of the experience. The other thing we've seen is a very big trend to follow events, whether that's going for a music festival, whether that's even going and joining a biking ride. We've seen that. So I think our next strategy is to really take these events and bring a lot of that out. I don't know if you were there when we showcased our movie, which was called America's, the National Parks film, America Wild. I think that's a brilliant way, and what we've really done is taken the film, made it with one of the award-winning makers. It's a 3D IMAX movie, and the movie was shown in 18 countries. 100 theaters all over the world, and it's still showing in Mumbai, Calcutta, and I think Chandigarh, in the Nehru Science Centers. And that's a brilliant way to kind of start to inspire the youngsters. You have kids who are from school seeing these films, and this was our thing, they've showcased all of America's treasures, which are really the national parks. And next year, we're coming out with another movie, which is going to be the musical journey of the US. So America's Musical Journeys, it's called. So I think we're always finding different ways to tap into and unique and creative ways to really to tell our story. Because that's what we are. We are storytellers to our consumers, and we use that for all our aspects of communication.
Very interesting, Shima, and thanks for bringing that insight. The 3D film is quite a good idea in any case about the national parks. My next question, actually the clock is seemingly running faster than I thought it should, so I have a lot of questions. So my next question is about the whole growth in the sharing economy that we are seeing. And especially with the youth and the younger new age traveler, he's increasingly getting more and more comfortable with the Airbnbs, the Ubers, and very comfortable using these. How is it, so I have two parts to this question. How is it that tourism boards are planning to cater to the sharing economy? That's my question. And what's the role of the social media that you are actually how are you using social media to communicate about your destination? So I will start with Claudio this time.
Okay. Well, in the week when in my second home in London, Uber got banned, I can't help but think of us here as tourist boards a little bit as the black cab drivers in this. We are not really necessarily equipped to deal with the sharing economy as such. We are representing a travel industry, mainly hotels, and we are paid by them to fill their hotels. And so it doesn't really, in Switzerland tourism's strategy is not really seen in there. However, for myself, I would like to see a lot of positive things out of it. So I see what with Airbnb happens is really that somebody who visits, somebody who books an Airbnb is treated as a guest in a home of somebody. And this is something which I sometimes feel is a little bit lost in the traditional tourism industry. These are travelers, these are clients who come to visit, these are people who spend money with us. And I just often try to reiterate with our suppliers, listen, people want to be guests. They want to be treated like at somebody's home. They want to be shown around. And this is something which we need to do more. And I think there is a big opportunity, particularly for smaller hotels, to lift this, I say, Airbnb ethos a little bit. You know, make a house out of your hotel. Make a big lounge. Rather than a breakfast room where people can go down and sit down. And when people travel, I went with two friends to Shimla the other week, and we were in an Airbnb, and we loved it because we had a lounge to sit down, and we didn't have to be all in our rooms. And then when we had to do our emails and go on our iPads, we could go in there and share it. So there's a big opportunity also for the traditional tourist sector to lift that. And the second was about social media. I think social media helped us a lot also in our traditional PR. We have changed our approach quite a bit. So when we think back how we did a TV show, a travel show a few years back, we would go to Switzerland, we would film a travel show, and it would be shown on TV, and then on Sunday there was a repeat, and then that was it. Nowadays, with the help of influencer who can host these shows, already when we're in Switzerland, people will use social media, people will follow what happens there. If we're lucky, the press is picking this up already, so we get a much more lifespan out of these activities. So if we use this smartly, then this can be of great help.
Thanks, Claudio. Christine, the same question is to you on the sharing economy and the social media from an ANTO perspective.
Yeah, ANTO, also in India and me, we are direct part of the Austrian government, and the status of Airbnb is unfortunately very unclear in Austria, and we are not right now too much in favor of it because most of them are not registered, which is also a security problem. Secondly, 90% of Airbnb are not paying the city hotel taxes. And of course, for me, very important, they don't figure in any statistic because we only count the official hotel overnights. But I fully see there is a huge potential, but as it is, the legal status has to be clarified, and as soon as the officials see the potential, I am sure we can find a solution. But right now, it's in a very gray area in Austria. And coming to a more positive topic, social media. We all know, we are all aware of the latest techniques. Every 2-3 months we have something new coming up. So I think we need to focus more on, again, what I said earlier, what does the traveler actually want, and then work on our content, because the marketing tools are more or less the same, and they will just vary a little bit in the future. So what we have done, for example, how to reach out to the Indian traveler, we have for the first time gone away from our world ads and from our pictures. We used to have mainly blonde and blue-eyed Austrians showcasing in our ads, which I have been trying to change for a long time. So next year, for the first time, we are going to use Indian testimonials. We accompanied a couple of Indian families this year. They were shot by super Austrian camera teams, and we accompanied them weeks during their Austrian holiday. So this will be our focus for next year, and this is going to be our social media strategy.
Very good point, Christina. And I think Indian consumer, new age, old age, conventional, I think the testimonials really work, because India is still by far a very large word of mouth kind of a market. Chipe, I'll move this question to you, both the sharing economy piece and the social media interactions.
I think underlying the sharing economy is really disruptions, right? Disruption to the incumbent players, disruption to the whole regulatory framework. And I think in Singapore, we are mindful that this is indeed a global trend. So how do you provide the right regulatory framework to ride the wave of the sharing economy, but also to protect the consumers, right, at the same time? I think for the ride-sharing apps like Uber, Grab in Southeast Asia, I think it's easier to do. I think what we have done is to require all of these ride-sharing drivers to be licensed. So they need to subject themselves to licensing, and the cars that they are driving needs to display a decal to indicate that they are part of either Grab or Uber or other ride-sharing app. So, but I think for the home sharing part, there are more issues involved, and it becomes, I think it's something that the Singapore government is still thinking through how best to regulate it. Because it's not just about you letting out a spare room for visitors. There are many people who are investors who are buying to let for short-term rental, and that creates these amenities to the residents in the condominiums or the housing estates. That also has the effect of inflating house prices. So I think the issues are a lot more complex, and it's something that Singapore is taking the time to examine the issues before we come into a set of recommendations. How do we want to regulate the home sharing scheme? At the moment, home sharing is not allowed unless it's for a stay of more than 3 months, right? Yeah.
On the social media interactions,
I think social media at the end of the day is just a means to an end of how do you engage and connect with the consumers. So I think the challenge with most tourism boards is, with our limited marketing budget, right? How do you allocate it wisely amongst the various channels to ensure that you're reaching to the right audiences and engaging with them with the right content. So I think the social media itself, we recognize the importance, and hence I think we have stepped up our allocation of our digital marketing buys. And we have also been a lot more savvy in terms of looking at key influencers to, through them, engaging them, reach out to their fans base. So I think that is also an area that we are doing more of, inviting them to fams in Singapore, getting them to try some of the Singapore experiences, and getting them to share these experiences through their network.
Thanks, Chipe. Shima, and US is where all of this starts, the sharing economy piece. And this is a big disruption, and like other disruptions, obviously it'll evolve over a period of time. But what's your view? Because it's extremely popular with the new generation, new age traveler. And while if I wear my tour operator's hat, I don't like it too much. But the reality is it's still growing, and it's growing very, very fast. So what's your view on that?
Well, really, I think this is just, these are technologies. This is something of the times that we are living in. So, I was just reading the other day, and you have Delta, which is one of our partners, which we work so closely with, because all travel partners are, and, through their Sky Miles, they're working with Lyft. So I think what we'll continue to, that's, I think our stand will be that this is just one of the things that happens, and we'll continue to keep promoting, and everybody does the promotion and getting more people into the country.
Sure.
And on the social media piece, and I've talked a lot about it, I think our strategy is social first. So, we'll begin to, you'll see from next year a lot more of that happening. But it's here to stay, and I kind of agree with what Claudio just said. In the past, it was so nice. You did a nice half an hour's program, travel log. That's all gone. People don't even want to watch it. So it's now all about, vignettes. It's about real time. It's about what you can do while you're at the location. So I think with all our fam trips and all our program and digital engagements that we do, we're making sure that the real time is really bringing out the authentic local experience.
I'm just changing the course a little bit, and I will go to Claudio again, because Switzerland is a very popular destination. We've been speaking about New Age traveler, and there are emerging travel groups now. And and I thought it's very important that in this discussion we bring out this point. The women business travelers is an emerging group. Then we're talking about the senior travel. Senior travel out of India is becoming extremely popular. It used to be, in 2013, used to be some 1.3 million, is projected to grow to about 7.5 million, so about 6x growth over the next couple of years. So from a destination which is mature, has always been in top of mind from an Indian traveler, how is it that you're trying to look at some of these new emerging segments out of India?
That's a very interesting question. Segmentation has become much more important for us as a tourist board, where in the past we would just, promote the country to everybody the same. Nowadays we have actually had a big reorganization in our head office to really make sure that we have different stories for different targets, for different segments, and which of course makes our job much more complicated, because the manpower is still the same. You have to juggle various contents to through various avenues. And we here in India, we have chosen, in addition to the main segments which we always have, for example, the art and culture traveler, which was not really something which we have looked in the past. And we have looked at the snow lover, we call it the snow lover as well, just because we also have sort of like strategies to, fill areas of Switzerland which are not necessarily visited by Indians so far. So winter in the ski resorts is not a very popular, or at the moment very busy time for India. So we're really looking at this segmentation quite carefully. It's a niche for us. It's an absolute niche, because we all know where the masses come from and where they go to. But it's definitely something which has become very important over the last 2 years for us.
And you bring a very, very interesting point on segmenting. And with so many emerging segments now, increasingly everything is getting more and more fragmented. And how do you communicate with each one of these segments in a manner that is tier 2 and tier 3 markets of India? How is it that Austria as a destination is looking at tier 2 and tier 3 markets, considering that it's a destination which is fast becoming very, very popular, and a lot of new demand which is going to come out will come out of the tier 2 and 3 markets? And my ancillary question with that is, there's obviously this thing about flight connectivity out of these markets. And the reason why I'm saying that is the Scoot and the Silk Air are flying out of some of these markets which were never the hubs. But now we are increasingly, as tour operators, people are planning around these markets. So from ANTO's perspective, tier 2 and 3 markets, what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, flight connections to Austria right now, direct connections are only depending on Air India, but we have so many other possibilities, and who knows, since you're mentioning Silk Air and so Air Berlin, if it's bought by Lufthansa, maybe they start flying to some destinations in India. No, but we work with all airlines, and there are so many cities. We can just identify them or their potential for us when we do the Google Analytics research, and we see from where does the traffic come. And not coming back to the first panel, of course, we have to look at the infrastructure of issuing of the visa. I mean, I'm very grateful to Switzerland, and we have a new ambassador for the last 1 month, and she keeps telling us in the weekly meeting, now look at Switzerland, how they do it, and we will do it the same way next year. So thank you very much, I'm very hopeful. So that is one thing we have to look, it's not only flight connections, because we know Austria right now is not a mono destination for the Indian traveler, and right now, of course, it will always be first Switzerland and Germany and France, and then comes Austria. So, and with our limited resources, we can only, when we come to B2C, we can only tackle that markets via social media again, and it is possible today, thanks to the latest technology, that you just send the message across to that smaller cities and hope to get the people with the money to Austria.
Thanks, Christine. And obviously, connectivity should improve. It will only get better over a period of time. I can't miss asking Shiva this question. I've asked her this question earlier. But, and I have a friend in the audience, Nishant Kashikar from Australian Tourism Board. And I'm using that as a Tourism Australia came with an India Outbound 2020 plan. And they are a long-haul destination out of India. And now they're growing in high double digits year-on-year basis. So what is your India-specific strategy if you lay it out? While the destination is right on top in terms of aspiration, but are you also planning to come up with a roadmap or a long-term plan from the Indian market, for the Indian market?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we've also had quite a lot good double digit, except for 2016. So we're very happy about that, and hopefully it will continue with all your support. You know, our vision for Brand USA, we have a worldwide global vision. So by 2021, we're looking at over 94 million visitors. And India will sit there, definitely has a plan there, which at this point I don't want to discuss. But you know, this year has been the US-India Travel and Tourism Partnership year. And it's been a fantastic year for us. We kicked it off with a fantastic celebration, which our CEO came, and there were a lot of other government meetings on the sidelines. And the partnership year, what we've done in this year has been enhanced a lot of our activities that we've done. So new things we've done this year. One of our big focus is going to be to work with the B2C and the B2B on showcasing beyond our gateways. So to begin with that, we have a mega fam. The first mega fam from India that's happening with Air India, that we are taking almost 24 tour operators to 3 different directions. So that's one thing, is really let's expose the Indians to newer places that they would like to go to. The other thing is really important for us is that what we are planning with, of course, our big film, which I'm hoping to show in Delhi, the last one soon, and then in February we'll have the new film on the musical journey of the Americas, which I think will be fantastic. Again, the third piece is when you look at it is, I think the way I think the commitment is so real. And you worked with us for several years now. I think every year we've come up with something new that we want to do. Just our own mission, like I said, the fact that we have so many new people that come into the mission every year is a big endorsement of this market, of the kind of possibilities this market offers. And I think before the end of the year, there'll be a lot more delegations coming in. So I think my thing would be, of course, new product. You touched upon a little bit on the tier 2 and tier 3 markets, and I'd like to tell you that in our educationals that we do from day one, we've gone into tier 2 and tier 3. So really is to expose the Indian traveler via all our communication that we do B2C to what the diversity of the country is. Number 2 is to work with the tour operators on not just educating them, but taking them there. And I think this was the beginning of this year and a lot more to come.
Thanks, Seema. And my last question is to Chipe. And Chipe, you touched upon this, but the question is, how does a destination like Singapore get its motivation? Where do you get your motivation to keep reinventing yourself every few years? Where does it come from?
I think maybe it's just really the DNA of Singapore, right? The history behind our independence, that nobody owns us a living, and we have to work hard because we have got no natural resources to fall back on, right? And I think go back to some of the earlier points that was made. I think the new generation of aircraft is going to be a game changer in the whole travel industry, and especially important for hub countries and cities like Singapore, right? There's been a couple of interesting developments over the last couple of months. We just launched, we just received a new long-haul LCC flight, Norwegian, flying from Gatwick, UK to Singapore. I think it's touching down to this week itself. So that will again open up a whole new market of price-sensitive leisure travelers who are looking for long-haul vacations. And the economics of the new 787s will make that potentially work. In November this year, Silk Air will start a new flight from Singapore to Hiroshima using a narrow-body 737 MAX, again, a new generation of aircraft that has a flight radius of about 7 hours. So again, I think this would, in a way, enable Singapore to tap into some of the tier 2, the tier 3 cities of the region to be able to attract them to come to Singapore in a cost-efficient manner. So I think that's really going to be a game changer for us going forward.
Thanks. And I think that's quite a motivation, and leveraging some of the opportunities like the hub airline part that you spoke about. I have Abe giving me threatening looks right there, so no more questions from me now. And thank you so much, panelists, for actually keeping this discussion very, very engaging and very insightful. We have just about enough time to take a few questions now. Please say your question, who's the panelist that you want to ask this question, and then ask your question after that.
Hi, my name is Rahul. I am a social media influencer and a travel blogger. My question is for Shiva. You mentioned a mega mart, about that opportunity which is coming up for the travel operators. Would you also be open in exploring the option of working with travel bloggers and social media influencers who can actually get you to your audience much, much faster than travel agents?
Absolutely, Rahul. I'd love to kind of chat with you on that. We're always looking for partners and opportunities with everybody that we can work with and who can take our message and tell our story a lot better than a lot of us can. Thank you.
That's a very good deal you got. We can take more questions. I think I can only compliment myself since I've asked all the questions and there are no questions left. But I will. I think if there are no more questions, I'll just make my closing remarks. I want to once again thank all the panelists for their time and sharing their perspectives and insights with us. And thank you so much for making this session very interesting and bearing with my voice. Thanks a lot.
And Vishal on stage to hand over mementos to the panelists, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a short tea break now. Tea is served to my right. So we'll regroup in exactly half an hour. Please feel free to bring your tea or coffee back to your tables because we've got the highlight panel, the New Age Technology Travel panel right up next. Thank you.